Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global and Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. Gunmen demand 5 million naira ransom after abducting woman and child in Osogbo. In Europe, German Chancellor confirms his country will send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. South Africa's main opposition party protests against worsening power cuts across the country. My name is Evelyn, and now the details. Gunmen have kidnapped a woman identified as Olayinka Tosin Kayode and her child around Otaifun Kobogbogwe area of Osogbo, the Osun State capital. A statement by the Union Baptist Church, Odiolowo Osogbo, said the victims, who are members of the church, were abducted yesterday evening while returning home from the shop. The statement disclosed that the woman's husband, Kayode Abayomi, has since been reached by the kidnappers, who are requesting that 5 million naira ransom be transferred to them through the account of his wife in their custody. Osun State Police Public Relations Officer SP Yemisi Okpalola confirmed the incident to Western Spring Television News. She added that efforts are ongoing to secure the freedom of the victims. Senator representing Osun Central Senatorial District at the National Assembly, Ajibola Bashiru, has berated the continuous destruction of his billboards by his opponents and has called on Governor Ademola Adeleke to live up to the oath he swore on security. Senator Bashiru made this appeal today at the first edition of Frontliners for the Year, a panel interview program of the Association of Veteran Journalists in Osun State. Olayinka Ale was at the event in Osogbo and completes the story.
The guest for this edition of the Frontliners is the senator representing Osun Central Senatorial District at the National Assembly, Ajibola Bashiru, who answered questions extensively on contemporary national issues from the panel of interviewers, namely Kayode Adidire, Sonia Fadipe, and Sunday Odedele, who are all veteran journalists. The panelists asked questions varying from the recurring fuel scarcity. And while the National Assembly is silent on such issue, the CBN monetary policy to some personality questions. In his reaction, Senator Ajibola Bashiru stated that the National Assembly has been engaging actively with the petrol marketers and the NNPC, but also address the challenges of the fuel scarcity. Talking on the CBN monetary policy, Senator Bashiru insisted that the January 31st deadline for old notes to be invalid is unrealistic. He stated that on Tuesday, January 24th, the National Assembly passed a resolution calling on the CBN to extend the deadline to July 31st, 2023, because it will lead to calamitous consequences if, as at 7 days to the deadline, the currency is not in circulation.
As you know, the petroleum industry bill was left languishing in the National Assembly for more than 15 years. But kudos to the current National Assembly were able to pass the Petroleum Industry Act, which has started impacting positively in attracting investment into the Nigerian oil and gas sector. On the issue of the notes, current new note by CBN, I agree with you. The January 31st deadline is unrealistic. As at this morning, I could not even access, the new currency notes at the in any of the banks, and the ATM machines are still dispensing old notes. Yesterday, I don't know whether you are aware, the Senate of the National Assembly will pass a resolution calling on the CBN to extend the deadline to July 31st, 2023. So we have acted and asked the CBN to extend the deadline because it's going to lead to calamitous consequences. If, as at 25th of January, as I speak, the currency is not even in our banks, how do you expect the economy to run?
Senator Ajibola, who is seeking for a re-election into the National Assembly in the February 25th general election, also made an appeal to the Osun State Governor, Senator Ademola Adeleke, to live up to the oath he swore on security, referring to the way his billboards have been destroyed by his opponent.
They are attacking my billboards, but as you know, the people of Osun Central know that in the past 3.5 years, we have delivered on qualitative representation. We have attracted meaningful projects. No amount of destruction of billboard will deter them from coming out en masse to vote and re-elect me as Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But I want to appeal to Governor Adeleke. He has a responsibility to live up to the oath he swore to in the Constitution. Section 14 of the Constitution says security and welfare is the primary purpose of governance. He should not abandon security because he wants to play politics. I think in the past 3.5 years, by the grace of God, I've lived to my campaign promise to provide qualitative representation for the people of Osun Central. All meaningful legislation that have been passed in the 9th Assembly have been part of it. I'm also attracted projects in terms of schools, in terms of road, in terms of solar light, in terms of borehole empowerment and employment of our teaming youth in Osun Central Senatorial District. So I believe that we need to consolidate on the progress and we move forward to ensure that Osun has qualitative representation that is able to consolidate on what I've done. And the only person that can do that, by the grace of God, is Surajuddin Ajibola Bashiru.
The new chairman of the Osun State Association of Veteran Journalists, Prince Adepoju Atobatele, said the main purpose of organizing Frontliner is to create a forum whereby people of different areas of endeavor will be able to express themselves. Prince Atobatele stated that the association is apolitical, as they will invite Governor Adeleke in the subsequent edition.
To create a sort of forum whereby people from different area of endeavor will be able to express themselves. That's why we call it a melting point for great thinkers.
The Association of Veteran Journalists comprises of notable men and women that have made a mark for themselves in the field of journalism. Olayinka Ali, Western Spring Television News.
The Abia State People's Democratic Party governorship candidate, Professor Uche Ikone, is dead. This was announced in a statement by his son, Dr. Uche Ikone, today, who disclosed that his father died at the National Hospital Abuja after a brief illness. It said the PDP governorship candidate was recovering after taking proper treatment in the United Kingdom but relapsed a few days ago, leading to multiple cardiac arrests from which he did not recover from. Presidential candidate of the African Action Congress ASC in next month's general election, Omoyele Sowore, has challenged other politicians gunning for the top job to join him in a marathon. Mr. Sowore tweeted that he would be participating in the Lagos Marathon next week and wanted 100 runners to join him. He named frontrunners Bola Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress APC, Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party PDP, and Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi amongst those who he said was keen on joining him.
He wants his kids to go to good schools so they can become somebody. He wants them to grow up healthy and strong. Is that too much to ask? So when you build your mansions, drive around in your fancy cars, remember to think of the little man, cause one day the tables will turn. So my sisters, don't you see, we must bring some sanity over here. How can one person have so much while so many have none? People keep on struggling. I meditate on the words.
Away from Nigeria, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says his country will send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. Mr. Scholz told a cabinet meeting that Germany will send 14 Leopard tanks and give permission for other countries to send theirs too. He added that training of Ukrainian troops in Germany will begin soon, and Germany will also provide logistics and ammunition. The move follows weeks of international pressure from Kyiv and its allies to approve the export of the German-made tanks. U.S. President Joe Biden's administration is also expected to announce plans to send at least 30 M1 Abrams tanks. Ukrainian officials have welcomed what they see as a potential game changer in the war. President Volodymyr Zelensky believes his country needs at least 300 battle tanks to defeat Russia. But Russia's ambassador in Washington has warned that any deliveries of U.S. tanks will be a blatant provocation.
Wir werden der Ukraine auch Kampfpanzer zur Verfügung stellen vom Typ Leopard 2. Das ist das Ergebnis intensiver Beratung erneut mit unseren Verbündeten und internationalen Partnern. Und ich will ausdrücklich sagen, es war richtig und es ist richtig, dass wir uns nicht haben treiben lassen, sondern dass wir auf diese enge Kooperation in einer solchen Angelegenheit setzen und sie auch fortsetzen.
In the meantime, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Angola yesterday evening and was received by his Angolan counterpart. Local media report that there were worries that Moscow was angry over recent moves by Angola, which could be seen as a shift from its neutral stance on the Russia-Ukraine war. In September, the country condemned Russia's annexation of Ukrainian regions and asked Moscow to initiate an end to the conflict. Mr. Lavrov is expected to meet President João Lourenço today at the presidential palace in the capital, Luanda, where the two leaders are expected to discuss bilateral relations, amongst other matters. DR Congo has declared Rwanda's shooting of one of its fighter jets an act of war amidst mounting tensions. Rwanda's government said it took defensive measures against a plane that had violated its airspace, a claim denied by DR Congo. This is a major escalation following months of conflict in eastern DR Congo, which has forced some 400,000 people to flee their homes. DR Congo, the United States, and the United Nations experts accuse Rwanda of backing the M23 rebel group. Rwanda has denied this and blames the Congolese government for the conflict. You're watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
Turn it up! It's the Wild Wild West, and Western Spring Television is pulling out all the stops to make sure that you don't miss out on every of the fun and happenings around here. Yup, we've got you covered because your girl got all the juiciest tidbits and entertainment news from around the world. Cross over to the chocolatey side of entertainment. Join me, Chocolate Cassie, on Eccentric as we take you into every bit of the juiciest news, fashion, music, movie updates, and other trending conversations. Together on the show, we'll get personal with your favorite celebrities via phone call, Zoom, or even live here in the studio. Eccentric will be showing on your TV screen on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
and your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
On this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Welcome back. Chris Hipkins has been sworn in as New Zealand's 41st Prime Minister. The 44-year-old was formally appointed to the role in Wellington a week after Jacinda Ardern's shock resignation. Ms. Ardern had said she no longer has enough in the tank to lead the country, and the country's Governor-General, Cindy Kiro, accepted her former resignation today. Mr. Hipkins built a reputation as the minister who led New Zealand's COVID-19 strategy. At the ruling Labour Party's caucus over the weekend, Mr. Hipkins received unanimous support to be promoted to lead the country and now faces the uphill task of retaining power in the upcoming general elections in October.
This is the biggest privilege and responsibility of my life. I'm energised and excited by the challenges that lie ahead. The Deputy Prime Minister and I both take today's appointments very seriously. As Prime Minister, I acknowledge the important nature of my role in advising the Sovereign and the Governor-General. I express my personal thanks to you and look forward to...
Tanzania's former presidential candidate Tundu Lissu is expected to return to his home country today from exile in Belgium. The opposition leader returns home after the government recently lifted a ban on political rallies, and he is expected to address supporters later in the afternoon. The ban imposed by former President John Magufuli in 2016 allowed only elected politicians to conduct rallies in their constituencies. Mr. Lissu was shot 16 times in an assassination attempt in 2017 in the country's capital, Dodoma, and has spent most of the years since in Belgium. He then returned for a few months in 2020 to challenge Mr. Magufuli in a presidential election where he only secured 13% of the votes. As Chadema party rejected the outcome over claims of widespread irregularities. Still in Africa, the death toll from a cholera outbreak in Malawi has passed 1,000, while cases have risen to 30,621, the highest on record in the country. This was confirmed by the country's health minister, Kumbiza Chimpanda, today. Most of the deaths occurred in the two main cities of Lilongwe and Blantyre, where children have recently gone back to classes after schools delayed opening to try and contain the spread. Ms. Chimpanda called on people to take extra care handling the bodies of cholera victims before funerals. South Africa's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, is holding a march in Johannesburg to protest against worsening power cuts across the country. The march headed towards the headquarters of the governing party, the ANC. The regular blackouts have been blamed on government's poor management of the power utility, Eskom, and an aging fleet of coal-fired stations. DA leader John Steenhuisen says the ANC-led government is to blame for the persistent power crisis. South Africa has been experiencing regular blackouts since last year, leaving homes, hospitals and businesses in the dark for several hours each day. There have been small pockets of unrest as a result, but this appears to be the largest demonstration in recent months.
To take power back and giving it back to the people of South Africa where it belongs. Power not to the government, power to the people. Power not to the government, power to the people. Power not to the government, power to the people. Because that's where it belongs. In a democracy, in the hands of you, the people. And that's why we're here today in these library gardens at Luthuli House. Now let me tell you, we've had to deal the last 2 weeks since we announced the march with the pearl clutches and those in the media who are squeamish when the DA stands up and takes a stand on behalf of South Africans. And the airwaves have been full of it. Why are you going to Luthuli House? Why don't you march to Eskom, to Megawatt Park?
Now talking business, Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom today joined other Nigerians calling for the extension of the deadline to drop old Naira notes. The call is coming after the Central Bank of Nigeria insisted that there was no going back on the stipulated deadline despite appeals by the National Assembly, key stakeholders and bank customers. Governor Otem made the appeal in Makurdi when he received the Governing Council of Joseph Sawuantaka University. He noted that going ahead with the January 31st deadline was tantamount to further increasing the pains of Nigerians. Microsoft says it has rolled back a network change it thinks may be linked to tens of thousands of worldwide users being unable to access its services, including Teams and Outlook. Down Detector, which tracks website outages, said users had reported the email service Outlook was inaccessible, while other services including Teams and Xbox Live were also reported as not working. Microsoft said it was monitoring the service as the change takes effect. Microsoft also said it was investigating a connectivity issue with its cloud computing service, Azure, affecting what it called a subset of users. Microsoft Teams is used by more than 280 million people globally, primarily in businesses and schools, where it can be of critical importance for calls, meetings, and general service organization. According to Down Detector, issues have been reported in many countries around the world, with thousands of reports in India and Japan alone. To some sports stories, Everton owner Farhad Moshiri says the club is not for sale despite supporter protests against this running of the club. Disgruntled fans have called for Moshiri and the board of the directors to resign in recent weeks, with the club 19th in the Premier League. The Merseysiders have won just one of their last 14 matches and sacked manager Frank Lampard on Monday. Moshiri says he feels the pain of the fans and will do whatever it takes to win back their support. A consortium led by former Manchester United and Chelsea chief executive Peter Kenyon held talks over a deal to buy Everton last summer. Talking tennis, 9-time champion Novak Djokovic has reached the Australian Open semi-finals, sweeping aside 5th seed Andrei Rublev in a devastating display. Serbia's Djokovic caught a frustrated figure at times, but channeled his emotions into a ruthless 6-1, 6-2, 6-4 win over Russia's Rublev in Melbourne. The 4th seed, who again had his left thigh strapped, will play American Tommy Paul in the last 4 on Friday. Greek 3rd seed Stefanos Tsitsipas will meet Russian Karin Chakhanov in Friday's other semi-final.
Absolutely incredible ball striking at the end of that point. Juice from Novak. Rublev had him early in the rally. Novak stayed in the backhand corner. Rublev hit him right to him, and by this point of the rally, Novak is in charge. Thank you. Little window closes there potentially for Rublev.
Meanwhile, Magda Linette will meet 5th seed Arina Sabalenka in the Australian Open semi-finals after she beats Karolina Pliskova to continue her dream run. The Polish world number 45 had previously never gone beyond the 3rd round of a Grand Slam in 29 attempts, but she produced a fearless display in a 6-3, 7-5 win over such 2-time major finalist Pliskova on Wroclaw Arena. 2-time Australian Open winner Victoria Azarenka plays Wimbledon champion Alina Rybakina in the other semi-final tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I will never forget this. It's, the first time ever I'm breaking through some really difficult things for me. So, I mean, this will stay with me for life. So I'm really grateful. I'm super happy for the support. So again, thank you so much, everybody.
Before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. Gunmen have kidnapped a woman identified as Olayinka Tosin Kayode and a child around Otaifun Kobongbogwe area of Osogbo, the Osun State capital. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says his country will send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. South Africa's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, is holding a march in Johannesburg to protest against worsening power cuts across the country. Remember, you can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Evelyn Ohiole. Have for yourself a good evening.
Evelyn Ohiole, King Eve. How are you today?